when you diagnose a problem and you see that something has changed that you've never had to deal with before, then it requires courage. And it requires courage to implement what are radical solutions to new problems that you've never really had to deal with before. And therefore I think, and this is probably where you're trying to get to, Lee, I mean, what is the quality of leadership that matters most? I think it is courage. Wisdom matters a great deal. Humility, I think, is incredibly important, and it's not one of the qualities that is associated most with politicians, as you probably know. They usually would write books like Modesty and How I Achieved It, you know. But courage, because you've got to be in a position to take a firm stand, and you've got to be able to see it through. Of course, you can have the right convictions, but you may not have the right determination to see something through. And of course you could be determined to see something through, but you may not have the right conviction, so you need both. And I think what is needed in a crisis is people who are prepared to take sometimes unpopular decisions. Barack Obama once said he would rather be a good one-term president than a bad two-term president. And what he really meant there, he might not say that at the moment because he faces election, but what he really meant there is you've got to take the long view, but the pressures are always on you to take the short-term view. 100 years ago, politicians who were making decisions were not under huge pressures in the way that they are now. Some of my predecessors in the United Kingdom, Disraeli could write poetry for half the day and still be the Prime Minister. Gladstone, one of my predecessors, ran what he called the Midnight Club for Fallen Women. He went out into the streets of London and tried to convert prostitutes. It was an amazing story. I don't know what the newspapers would have said if he'd done it today. Then Rosebery was the Prime Minister, and whenever a cabinet meeting, which is the major decision-making body, clashed with a race meeting, he always chose to go to the horse racing meeting. That's how important he thought his job was. And you know, when President Kennedy came to the United Kingdom in 1961 to meet Harold Macmillan, our Prime Minister, amazingly, Harold Macmillan, the Prime Minister, was asleep and hadn't woken up when President Kennedy arrived at the door of Downing Street. And they had to waken up the Prime Minister, and President Kennedy had to be given a newspaper to read, and he had to wait for half an hour. Now, could that ever happen now without a major international crisis? So there are two films out at the moment in Britain, and some of you may have heard of them. One is called The Iron Lady, which is about Mrs. Thatcher, who was our Prime Minister. And the other one is called The Lady, which is about Aung San Suu Kyi, the Burmese leader. And these are two very popular films at the moment. And one presents a style of leadership, and this is the answer to my friend from the Philippines, that is in a sense command and control, almost instructing people, dictating to people, and that kind of leadership. But the other film, Aung San Suu Kyi, presents another kind of leadership, which is about how you inspire people to do the right things, how you lead people to do the things that will change things, how you tap the potential of people, and by almost coaching them, you move them forward. And Aung San Suu Kyi, of course, was never in a position where she actually ran a country, even although she was elected as the leader, but she inspired millions of people to still be resistant to a regime that was brutal and dictatorial and corrupt, by the way she brought people along, inspired them, and coached them, if you like, to be leaders of the future. So there are two styles of leadership, and I think the second style, which is coaching people, motivating people, helping people make the best of themselves, is perhaps a style of leadership that has been undervalued in the past, and it's a style of leadership that I think will make a bigger difference if it is practiced in the future. So you ask what are the styles of leadership for the future. I think coaching people, helping people, leading people on to be better at doing things that you don't do yourself, but people are encouraged to do as individuals and as communities. And that style of leadership, I think you'll find if you watch the film The Lady, although I'm not paid here to advertise any film today. For the people that I admire most in the history of the world are people who have shown an amazing degree of courage, and it goes from Nelson Mandela to this day to Aung San Suu Kyi in Burma. People have taken difficult stands, known they were going to be unpopular, but they've had the courage, i.e. the determination and resolution to see it through. So that's how I see leadership in the future.
Thank you.